Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we are going to be playing the new Momentum seasonal event, and in this alternate game mode, whenever a unit takes damage, it will take bleeding equal to the amount of damage that it receives, and whenever a unit gets boosted, it will receive vitality equal to the amount that it gets boosted. Now let's take a look at the deck that we're going to use today. So we're going to be playing as Northern Realms and using the Stockpile leader ability. That means that every other turn we can give a unit a charge. Generally speaking, the theme of this deck is that we are going to give lots of little boosts, that way we can give as many units as possible vitality and have them all get boosted at the end of our turn, rather than giving one or two units a bunch of boosts and a bunch of vitality that they'll never have the time to fully get boosted from. So first on our list is Oneiromancy. This is the spell that allows us to play any card from our deck, and whenever we play it, we will then create an echoed copy of it in the next round. This is just extremely versatile, so it gives us the flexibility we want. Next we have Geralt Yrden, and this is a way of making sure that our opponent doesn't go too crazy with their own boosts and vitality by being able to reset a row. Next we have Donimir of Troy, who is a defender, also has a shield, and with him we can block many of the units that are more vulnerable but very useful to help set up other cards and supply all of the boosts. Next we have Priscilla, and she can give a unit a charge every turn. This is technically an order, not a charge itself, and therefore we cannot use our leader ability on her. However, she will further empower the units that use all those charges. Next we have Nenneke, and she can boost a unit 4 times immediately with the Zeal component. Because those are charges, she will be one of the primary targets from both our leader ability and from Priscilla. Next we have Alzur's Double Cross, which plays the highest unit from our deck. Most of the time this is going to be Donimir of Troy, which will be helpful to be able to get him onto the playing field and block some of our setup units. Next we have Dandelion. When we play him in the range row, he will boost a unit every time it gets a charge, and this is a great synergy to go along with units like Priscilla and Nenneke. Next we have Vissegerd, and when we play him, he will gain charges equal to the number of boosted allied units, so we're hoping that we'll have enough boosts that can be a lot. And then with those charges that he creates, he can damage enemy units by 1. So this is another potential target for our leader ability and for Priscilla. Next we have Vysogota of Corvo, and this is probably our strongest setup unit. He can boost a unit by 1 and gains a charge every time we or our opponents play a card. So the charges will add up very quickly, and this is another target for Priscilla and our leader ability. Next we have Strenger, and she's another great booster because she will boost the unit to the right of her at the end of every turn, or if she herself is boosted, she will boost the card to both the left and the right of her. These are not charges, so she can't get empowered by our leader ability or by Priscilla. Next we have the Bone Talisman, and this will boost all allied units by 1. The idea here is that this will give a bunch of units a boost and a bunch of units vitality. That way they can all get boosted at the end of our turn. Next we have Knighthood, which is a little bit similar to the Bone Talisman in that this is another way of supplying a lot of boosts, potentially, to a lot of units. It will split 6 boosts randomly across all units in a certain row. If we have only one unit on there, then that means all 6 boosts will go to that one unit. If we have a bunch of units, then it will split it randomly across all of those. Next, we have Stambleford's Tremors, which is basically just the offensive version of the Bone Talisman. Instead of boosting all of our own units by 1, we are damaging all of the opposing units by 1. Next, we have the Reinforced Trebuchet. When we play it in the range row, it will damage a random enemy unit in the range row by 1. This is just a consistent source of damage, so continuing to apply those bleeds to our opponent. Next, we have the Aretuza Adept. When we play her in the range row, she can give an allied unit a charge every turn. That makes her very similar to Priscilla. Next we have the Griffin Witcher, who can damage an enemy unit by 1 every turn, so a consistent way of applying the damage and applying the bleed to our opponent. When we have 3 or fewer cards in our hand, then it will deal 3 damage and lock itself. Then we have the Temerian Drummer, who will boost the unit to the right by 1, so this is another way of applying the boost to ourselves and getting the vitality in the process. Next we have Tridam Infantry, and whenever we boost this unit, it will damage a random enemy unit by 1, and therefore apply 1 bleeding. Normally, this would be the primary target of your boosts in Northern Realms deck. However, we do want to split our boosts around a little bit more in this seasonal event. That way we can have vitality on as many units as possible. And lastly, we have the Lyrian Scythman. This unit will get boosted by the number of boosted allied units that we have. So this is a good late game play, assuming that we have a lot of boosted allies. Does mean that we'll get a lot of vitality on it, and maybe more vitality than we have time to get boosted. But we're probably going to be okay with that if this was going to be the last card we play anyway. So there's a look at the deck. Now let's get started. Okay, so we'll be playing Scoia'tael first. And as for our starting hand here, we have Dandelion, and we have Corvo, and that is a good combination. We can also give additional charges to Corvo with the Aretuza Adept, so I like that a lot. We have Oneiromancy that we can use to get any card of our choosing. We have a couple of drummers as well. We have a lot of sources of boosting. I do like this hand a lot, so let's stick with it. Okay, so to start us off here, I would like to get Corvo out there as early as possible because this is our best unit in terms of supplying the boosts. It will give us at least 2 boosts per turn. However, as soon as we play this, it will almost certainly become the target of our opponent, so we might want to deliberately put out something like Donimir of Troy in advance of that. Now, we don't have him in our hand, but we could, of course, make him appear by, say, using this Oneiromancy to summon him. So why don't we make that happen? So we'll play him in the range row, because Corvo will definitely go in the range row. We'll save our tactic likely for Corvo. Okay, and our opponent is going for, at least it would seem, a Harmony setup here, which might be a solid way of applying a lot of boosts. Let's go with Corvo now. And then I think we do use our tactical advantage. Sure, Corvo is hiding behind Donimir of Troy, so he's a little bit safer now, but just in case, and let's give him the additional charge. And we're going to save those boosts for once we start to get additional units out there. Uh-oh, this makes me nervous. So, in the range row, this card will give boosts to their units whenever they move. In the melee row, it will damage us whenever we get moved. And because we have several cards that need to be in the range row, I am wary of us getting moved around. As for right now, though, let's get Dandelion out here so that every time that Corvo generates a charge, Corvo will get boosted and start building up that vitality. So we'll get Dandelion out there. And then let's also start spreading around those boosts a little bit with Corvo. That way we can start getting the vitality going as well. Okay, and yes, our opponent is immediately following up with some moving units. Understandable. And now I think what we do is we continue to use units that will give us additional charges. So let's go with the Aretuza Adept. And then we could also boost her further, so she starts getting vitality. And we could continue to do that basically every turn. As we start to get more units out there, it's going to be harder to boost every single one with Corvo, but when we can, we'll try. And more movement still. Whenever you have 2 of those Dryad Matrons, they will basically switch spots with each other and boost each other in the process. Then if you have the Double Fauna Sentry on top of that, then they'll get boosted even further. So they're going to have a ton of vitality by the time we're done with this round. I'm thinking what we might want to do here is get out the Tridam Infantry and start boosting that a lot and see if we might be able to have enough damage to take out something like the Double Fauna Sentry. Let's go for that. We'll play into the melee row because I think that generally speaking our range row is going to get fairly crowded and I'm wary of a Geralt Yrden. So now let's use Corvo, or actually give Corvo additional charges, and then start applying the damage. This will be random damage. We don't know where it will go. We'd like for the Double Fauna Sentry to be the target of it, because that is one unit that will not get boosted by all the movement. It is the source of many of those boosts, though. And then Cat Witcher means more movement still. Okay, so we both have pretty strong engines set up here. I'm a little bit wary of us continuing to play this round because, at least at the moment, we do have a strong lead, but the longer this goes, the more they may continue to build up additional movement cards. The one thing is that I do love to have Tridam Infantry plus Temerian Drummer, so that is awfully tempting here. I think we go with one more round of this, and then this is likely the last turn in which we'll actually play cards. We'll probably pass after this. Let's give Corvo's charges, and then we'll make sure that we're using those charges. And we could continue to boost Tridam Infantry, see if we can get rid of the Double Fauna Sentry. If we do, then I think we're in very good shape. But I think we instead maybe, with our remaining charges, split that a bit between our other units and get additional vitality going. Okay. Cat Witcher Adept could apply either bleeding or vitality, depending on where they play it, and they go for the bleeding. Here comes the movement. And I think our lead is strong enough now that we should pass here. We could consider going further still and see if we can force our opponent into playing additional cards, but I think let's take this round 1 victory and move on. But our opponent is continuing to play more, and Shaping Nature does apply a ton of vitality. Is it enough by itself, though? They will have a lot of movement. They will get the boost from that movement. Is that enough? I wouldn't think it would be. No, they will have to play another card here. So that would suggest that maybe they are willing to play a ton of cards in order to win round 1, which is maybe a sacrifice not worth making at this point. At least that's the case I'd make. But they continue at it. This will be some damage, but it will take a turn before they can do that. And the big thing here is that they will continue to get those boosts from all the movement, but it's still not enough. They might actually be able to pass here, and they will still move around, and they will still get boosted from that, so I think they actually should pass. Though by using that order, they need to play a card. That was a huge mistake. Here comes another Cat Witcher Adept, and they're not terribly strong cards, by themselves at least. But I think it's going to be the movement that ultimately takes our opponent to the round 1 victory here. It's just, in order to do that, they had to go 3 cards down. Okay, so we got our second copy of Oneiromancy here. We got another Aretuza Adept, and we drew into Strenger. We have one unit that can get additional charges in Vissegerd. He is usually a unit that you want to play fairly late on once you have units that are boosted, so that means that having units like Aretuza Adept and our leader ability, it's not a great combo for him specifically, so we might want to switch this around a little bit and say, try to find another source of charges. Lyrian Scythman is maybe a good late game card to play here. I think we might also just want some throwaway cards because this will probably be a short round. Our opponent is way down on cards, and yeah, for that reason they're going to instantly pass, and so it could potentially even be worth playing an Aretuza Adept here because the primary unit that we wanted to give those charges was Corvo or Nenneke, although we could use Oneiromancy to get Nenneke, so tell you what, no, that could work. So let's leave you, and then for that reason, maybe we throw away the Lyrian Scythman. He's a good last turn card to play, but I think we may not need him in this circumstance, so let's dump him. You are the sacrificial lamb. Okay, so we will have 9 cards here, whereas our opponent will only have 7. We drew into Nenneke, and we drew into Priscilla, which were probably the 2 cards that we wanted most to go along with the Aretuza Adept. What would we want with Oneiromancy then? Maybe Geralt Yrden to slow down whatever they're trying to do? So this is looking very strong. Maybe we'd want a Tridam Infantry in order to be the target of some of these boosts, but we could get that with Oneiromancy as well. And our opponent has decided they can't do it. They went down 3 cards in round 1, and that was just too big of a deficit for them to come back from. Okay, so coming in with a hotfix to the deck, it recently came to my attention that the Bone Talisman does not give vitality to units when you give those boosts, so we're going to take this out. Similarly, Knighthood also does not give vitality when we give boosts with this, so we're going to remove this card as well. Stammelford's Tremors does not give bleeding to opposing units when you damage them by 1, so we're going to take these out as well. The first card that I've used to replace those cards is the Botchling. At the end of our turn, this card will damage an opposing unit by 1. This should also apply a bleed, and then if we want to, we can also transform it into the Lubberkin, in which case it will boost a unit on our side at the end of our turn, which should give that unit vitality. Another card that we'll add in will be Nathaniel Pastodi. This is another target of our boosts. Whenever it gets boosted, it will apply 2 bleeding to opposing unit. I also added a couple of Cintrian Spellweavers. These guys will deal 1 damage, and they can gain a charge whenever we play a mage. We have a couple of those, but more than anything, we'll be giving these guys charges with our leader ability. Okay, so we're going to go against a fellow Northern Realms opponent. And to start off with, we do have Corvo. That's big. We do have an Aretuza Adept to give Corvo charges. That's also helpful. We have Geralt Yrden, which can be particularly good against Northern Realms to get rid of some of those boosts on the opposing side. And I think the Botchling's not bad either. Oneiromancy is also really helpful to, say, get something like Donimir of Troy to protect Corvo. And a Strenger giving boosts to Tridam Infantry. This is looking pretty solid. I'd say maybe just the reinforced Trebuchets. Nenneke is also huge. We might want to split these two between a different round. And then Temerian Drummer, also a source of boosts. So I think this is a great hand. Perhaps even, dare I say, too good, and we want to save some of these cards for a future round. So at least to start ourselves off here, let's go with Corvo in round 1, and then we'll save Nenneke for a future round. So I don't want to start with Corvo. Let's instead get Donimir out initially to protect Corvo. That way Corvo doesn't immediately go down. So we'll use Oneiromancy, and use Oneiromancy to get Donimir. Play him in the range row, and we'll leave him there for now. Okay, and they're using Radovid's Royal Guards, which can be a source of boosting, yes, although not a terribly big one. which does immediately make me wonder if they are going to be trying to play for the win in round 1, or maybe they're just throwing in the towel already after seeing Donimir. So I think now, let's get Corvo out there. There's a chance that we may be over-investing, just based on how our opponent has already started here, but let's not read too much into what they've done thus far. Let's give maybe 1 Vitality to Donimir, except I'm a little bit concerned about getting him up to 9 Strength, because if our opponent does have, say, something like a Geralt or Rivia, then once he's at 9 Strength, he could immediately get destroyed. So let's actually leave him here. Alright, and Karak Frigate will spawn in a bunch of units, yes, although spawning units, not boosting units, which would not be quite as good for the seasonal event, I wouldn't think. And for that reason, I didn't include that card in this deck. So I think next comes Aretuza Adept. That'll be another source of charges for Corvo. And maybe we do give her a boost. That way she'll get a little bit of vitality because she'll be blocked behind Donimir. Don't need to worry about her going too high up. And she's not anywhere near 9 strength anyway. Okay, so there goes in the Volunteer. But like I said, it's not getting boosted, so I'm not too concerned about that, to be honest with you. That is a source of boost, and a lot of vitality at that, so that's a solid play, although you have still played almost exclusively low provision cost cards, which makes me a little bit nervous that you're saving the big stuff for later. On our end, I think for that reason, we might want to play it a little bit slow here and go with something that is not terribly important, like a Griffin Witcher, and then we could, say, just throw some boosts on you, and this might turn into a little bit of a shorter round. So let's put you in the melee row. And I think we do, for a similar reason, want to use our tactic now, and we could throw that on Corvo. And then let's throw some of these boosts on as well. And I think we deliberately avoid boosting Donimir. Let's boost the Griffin Witcher further. I think maybe with all of our remaining charges, and we can even give Corvo charge. Will we have time to use that charge? Remains to be seen. Yes, we will. Oh, except we could have given the charge with Aretuza Adept as well. Alright, maybe we were a little bit too slow there, but I think we still have a pretty sizable lead here. We could very well pass after this turn if we chose to. But our opponent has created another Volunteer, which means they need to play a card now. They're creating some shields. Or at least they will. I think in that case, at the very least, it suggests that they're looking to play longer. And I would like to save Anna Strenger, maybe the Botchling, certainly Nenneke. Geralt, Yrden, definitely. Tridam Infantry and Temerian Drummer, we could potentially start throwing those out there. I think maybe Temerian Drummer comes next. That way we can boost you even further, although at this point, you're going to get vitality like crazy, so much so that you're not going to have time to experience all that vitality. We can deal some damage, and with that damage, is there anyone in particular that we want to hit? Maybe you, in case we do decide to Yrden on this range row here. Unlikely, but possible. Then let's apply more boosts, and we'll boost up Temerian Drummer a little bit, and generally try to spread them out, so that way everyone does get the chance to get boosted by the vitality. And they're still playing cards. In some ways, that is a good thing because we did go first, so we don't want to be at card disadvantage going forward. Now they're throwing in a few leader abilities here. So all of a sudden, it looks like they're going pretty hard in this round. Spawn a copy of a bronze unit from your hand. It's Lyrian Scythman, which, with all those boosted units, will get boosted a fair bit himself. It does give them a slight lead here. I feel like they may want to pass after this. Let's take a quick look. They'll get boosted by 1 from the vitality on the Lyrian Scythman if they pass immediately, and then that will get them up to 48 if we pass immediately. We'll get boosted by 1 from the Temerian Drummer, and then all of our vitality will kick in for 1, 2, 3 additional boosts, so 4 in total, bringing us up to 47. We would still be behind by 1. Okay, fine. I suppose that does mean that we pretty much need to keep on playing here. So let's give charges to Corvo. Let's put down Tridam Infantry. Let's deal the damage. This time we'll do it to Queen Adalia, and we will give the boost primarily to Tridam Infantry so that he can deal some more damages. We do also want to give a little bit of vitality to others, but we'll focus on Tridam Infantry. And they pass. Okay. So that does mean that I believe at this point we have played one more card than them. That is fine as long as we pass immediately in round 2, which I think is fine at this stage. So we'll take the round 1 win. So we get round 2 of Oneiromancy. We get Alzur's Double Cross, which, after having already played Donimir of Troy, is not that good of a card for us to have, so we'll probably swap out of that. Then we also drew into Nathaniel Pastodi, which could be a good target for our boost. Let's swap you, and we get Priscilla. That is a great combo to go along with Nenneke. Nenneke will definitely be the centerpiece here, and since we aren't planning on playing any cards in this round, I think we might just leave it at this and plan long-term, and I like all these cards, so I think we're good. So let's pass. It'll force our opponent into playing 1 card. They'll drop down to 7. We'll both draw back up to 10 for the last round, and Ronvid does have a little bit of carryover, so that is certainly the right card for this situation for them to play. Okay, so the additional cards that we drew into were Temerian Drummer, Reinforced Trebuchet, and Cintrian Spellweaver. I like the Spellweaver because this is another source for us to use our leader ability on. I'm not a huge fan of the Trebuchet. Let's try getting rid of you. Scythman could be a good last turn card to play for a big boost similar to what our opponent did in round 1, but we may still be able to do better. What else do we have in our deck right now? We could say get Dandelion might be best, but we could use Oneiromancy for that, in which case maybe we can stick with the Lyrian Scythman. Little bit of a risk. If things are going well and we have a lot of boosted units, then it'll be very good. If things are not going so well, then it's going to be a pretty bad card. Okay, so they start off with Tridam Infantry, and they will get the carryover from Ronvid, as expected. They've used many of their leader ability charges, so that's another way in which we might have a little bit of an advantage here. As for what we want to do here, though, Nenneke is definitely the centerpiece. The problem is we may not want to lead off with her, otherwise if she goes down immediately, then we are in serious trouble. So I think we lead off with a Cintrian Spellweaver, and then this may get targeted. If it does, then it's not the end of the world. We'd like for it to stay around, but we're hoping that if our opponent does have, say, a source of damage or outright removal, that they use it on this guy rather than Nenneke. And they're getting out Strenger, so this could start to look very similar to what we're planning on doing. Our hope would be that we might be able to get enough damage on the Cintrian Spellweaver that we could start to get rid of some of these setup cards on their side. How would we do that, though, is the question. Botchling gives us some damage. It will hit the highest unit, which at this point in time would be Tridam Infantry, which is going to be hard to damage more than it gets boosted, so I'm not sure that's really a recipe for success there. For that reason, maybe we do even get our own Strenger and or Temerian Drummer out there. Might not be a bad idea. I think we actually lead off with Temerian Drummer, use that to boost Strenger. It's a little bit slower, but I think longer term, it will benefit us, and let's damage their Strenger, because if she is damaged, and the bleed would actually take her out at this point, then that makes it harder for her to get inspired, which is the only time when she can boost to both the right and left side of her. Amphibious Assault is concerning, though. They can play any card they'd like as long as it's Northern Realms. It will get boosted a lot in the process, and they are doing exactly what I was saying we want to do. So yes, very familiar. Now I think we play Strenger. Similar to what they were doing, this is a way of making sure that Strenger does become inspired. The difference is that we were damaging their Strenger, whereas they were not damaging our Strenger. So ours is going to be inspired, whereas theirs is not. Oh, except now they can Karate Heatwave to outright remove a card, and it is Strenger. Okay, I think that is still okay. Obviously, that's a great card that we want to have out there, but that is one of the things we wanted our opponent to start to use and get rid of so we could keep around Nenneke, who is more important for us long term. So I think at this point, now we can start to transition into Nenneke territory. So why don't we get down either Nenneke herself or maybe even Priscilla? Let's go Priscilla first, and I think we might put her in the range row. That way she'll get boosted with formation. We don't need her right off the bat, but we will definitely want her next turn. Okay, and they are going to perhaps sacrifice Ronvid with Offering. That's cruel. It allows them to get back the Kirak Frigate, which I was criticizing a bit before, but I think, in this circumstance, is at least decent. It may not be supplying the boost, which is ideal for this seasonal event, but it still will give you some source of power. But at this point, I think we are now firmly in Nenneke territory. We play her. We'll give her a bunch of charges. And with those charges, let's at least start off by boosting Temerian Drummer. Get that to the point where it can, well, be safe and get Vitality. Similar with the Cintrian Spellweaver and similar with Priscilla. And then ideally, I think we would save these 2 charges here for, say, something like Nathaniel Pastodi once we get him down. Of course, if Nenneke goes down from some kind of card that our opponent plays this next turn, that would be unfortunate, but we'll see. Okay, and Lyrian Scythman does have a lot of strength, but that is a little bit early to play him. Ideally, you would play him at the very end when everyone, or at least the maximum number of units, are boosted. As for us, though, we can give more charges, and at this point, Strenger is getting boosted pretty quickly. She is now inspired, so that is meaning that she will do a little bit more than she was doing before. Could we perhaps find a way to stop that? Remind me, Oneiromancy was going to be into Dandelion, was it? That is a pretty good setup. I think we probably take that here. Let's go for it. Dandelion in the range row means that whenever someone gets charges, they get boosted for each charge gained, and that will be a lot for either Nenneke or the Cintrian Spellweaver. I was thinking the Spellweaver might have been okay if we could take out Strenger, but I think we weren't quite quick enough to get that done. So let's go with Nenneke instead in that case, and then we will continue to boost other units and try to give them vitality if possible. There we go. And now they have a Tridam Infantry, which is a good target for this setup here. That is ideally what we would have done with Nathaniel Pastodi, but of course they got rid of our Strenger. We could still put him down here next to Temerian Drummer, and that is probably what we do now. Let's go for it. And then we will give the charges to Nenneke, both with our leader ability and with Priscilla. And then with those charges, we'll focus on giving boosts to Nathaniel Pastodi. At least one to start giving them vitality as well. But we might also want to spread the love a little bit to get rid of some of this bleeding on other people. But those volunteers are starting to add up a bit. Oh, and Erland is big. You will also gain immunity because you had 3 or fewer cards in your hand. Uh-oh. Okay. Fortunately, we do have what could be the perfect counter for this, Geralt Yrden. So this will definitely be something we'll use in the range row, and that will definitely be the last card that we play. So I'm thinking that means that Botchling probably comes next, then Lyrian Scythman, then Geralt Yrden. So why don't we give charges to you, and then we can boost, probably still going to be Nathaniel Pastodi. We could say just get rid of these bleedings, but I think it's still on net best to go this route here. And then we'll go with Botchling next. Shouldn't matter which row we put you in. That'll deal damage to the highest unit, which right now is this Tridam Infantry, which is not a great thing because we are going to end up resetting that row. Yennefer will either damage or boost all units depending on which place you play her. Went for the boost, which means lots of vitality. But I think that's fine because we are, again, going to end up resetting that row. So, sure. And it does also empower Lyrian Scythman. So, tell you what, let's stockpile on Nenneke. Then we will Priscilla onto Nenneke. And then with Nenneke, we will give a little bit of boost to the Botchling, give a little bit of boost to Dandelion. Then with the remaining boost, we'll give that to Nathaniel Pastodi. And then that means that Lyrian Scythman will get the maximum number of boosts when we play him. That looks good. And now we will leave it here, I think. We won't swap over the Botchling. We could. It would start boosting instead of damaging in that case, which may actually be preferable, come to think of it. We'd lose 1 strength, and we'd lose vitality in the conversion, but then we would give vitality to ourselves, since we would be damaging Tridam Infantry, and that's going to get reset anyway. I think that might still be better. And we'll see what they have as their last card. They still have their leader ability. Lyrian Scythman, please play him in the range row so we can reset him. Ah, okay. Played him in the melee row, which is not great, but this last one will go in the range row. So they have a lot of strength, but they are about to lose a ton. So, okay. Don't know exactly how much this is going to amount to, unless we were to do some crazy quick math with all these units here to see how much strength they would lose from a Geralt Yrden. But to lead things off with, let's go Priscilla into Nenneke. And then from there, I think it is actually best to make sure that we are giving vitality to as many units as possible, because we won't have time for those bleeds to take effect from Nathaniel Pastodi. Let's go to the Spellweaver. Let's go to the Lubberkin. And then we'll play Geralt Yrden. This is the big one. Play it in the range row. Will it be enough? It's close, but it looks like it may be. We'll see once all the vitalities and bleeds take effect. But yes, it is. So there's a look at a Northern Realms deck for the Momentum seasonal event. Good for splitting around those boosts and therefore splitting around the vitality. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know what type of setup you'd like to have for this new seasonal event. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.